Corky Wren. Rules and regulations mean that this is a city derby with a difference, as we have a crowd capacity capped here at 200. But thanks to our new partnership with Cork GA, we in the Irish Examiner are delighted to once again be streaming a game free to air for football fans in the city, county and far beyond. Recent form points towards a close encounter tonight, with Douglas winning last year's tie by a point, while Bishopstown were victorious in 2018 by 2. All will be revealed over the next hour or so, and in a few minutes' time I'll be joined by Tony Lean and Paddy O'Shea to run through the teams and see where the balance of power may lie. But first off, let's check in with the two camps. A little earlier in the week I spoke with Douglas manager Ray Keating, but first let's hear the thoughts of Bishopstown's centre-back and captain Jamie O'Sullivan.
Being out in front of less than 200 people, it's bizarre times.
Yeah, I think it's strange times, I suppose, both, in all aspects of people's lives, I suppose, work, family setup and sport as well. And I think lads are just glad to get back. I think everyone was really happy to even get back training, just playing challenge matches before now. And it's I suppose, kind of a step towards normality that lads are looking forward to it. I suppose the crowds, I think people, will adjust. I suppose once the match starts, you kind of zone out from what's going around you. Yeah, it's going to be a little quieter, but in the kind of heat of the battle, I don't think it's going to affect either team really.
Okay, there was a big debate when the announcement was made that the club championship was coming back about whether players would be keen to get back in terms of the entire issue of social distancing on a football field or a hurling field being an impossibility. But from what you're saying, lads are just desperate to get back out onto a field.
Yeah, I think, I suppose as long as they know, there's the GA have kind of tried to do as much safety measures as they can. So I think people just want to, I suppose there is no kind of return back to normal, but I suppose they want to do as many things as what they were doing before, in a safe manner. And as long as it's done in a safe manner, I think lads are happy to go back and play.
Okay, what has the last few months been like for you personally, and from a club perspective, how have you kept it all going since the middle of March?
Personally, I suppose I've just been working from home. Ballincollig, so it hasn't been too bad. My company work for Depuy Synthes. They've been accommodating, and I can do most of my work from home, so that's been fine. From a club perspective, I suppose it was a complete shutdown in March, and since then, the senior football panel, we would have trained on our own. So I suppose it was kind of, we were given programs just to keep us taking over, but there was and then a small bit of running, but there was no emphasis really or pressure on us to do any more than that. I suppose it was more for peace of mind and for just to keep your fitness and health up. And so I think the club did that quite well, and that they were looking after player welfare before putting anyone at risk. And I suppose as things started ramping back up and being released, we started just doing sessions in 1 to 4 small groups. Again, just injury prevention, making sure that once we start playing now, that we can kind of keep that injury count down, because I suppose that's important in the round robin system.
Okay, and finally, just on that round robin system, exciting times, but also going to be very challenging for the likes of a dual club such as yourselves.
Yeah, I suppose you can view it as a negative, but I think we'd like to look at it as a positive, as if we can get some wins in our first matches, and either you build momentum as a team. And then, to be honest, I'm kind of happy just to go out and play matches now for the next couple of weeks. I suppose that's why we play since I've been small. So no, I don't see it as an issue really. Maybe as you get further deeper down into the championship, there might be a bit of fatigue, but in the round robin phase, it's just great to be playing matches every weekend.
Now, Ray, you are in your first season as manager of the Douglas Senior Footballers. Talk about a baptism of fire.
Yeah, I suppose when we initially sat down at the start of the year, we couldn't really have planned for all of the things that we've had to deal with. But then I guess nobody could do so. Yeah, it's been an interesting year. I suppose we kind of came in a little bit late, so we were scrambling at the start of the season, getting ready, and then obviously we've been scrambling again for another couple of weeks. Obviously, with everything being up in the air as to whether a championship would take place or not, when it might take place, and the various ins and outs of how it would take place. So it's it's certainly been an interesting year. But look, I guess the fact that it's happening at all and we have the opportunity to play is just a huge positive. It's brilliant, really, to just get back out there.
Okay, so a lot of positives and negatives as well. What have you been finding over the last couple of weeks have been the biggest issues and obstacles for you?
I guess the first one, managing, I guess all the players have been doing stuff while lockdown was happening, but it's just a different kettle of fish when you go back into an actual team training scenario, just in terms of the knocks, the niggles. We've unfortunately lost James Holland to a bad knee injury. Would be one of our best forwards. He unfortunately, I think it was the second or third session back, fractured his kneecap and did his ACL, which is just a freak thing. But you can't help but wonder if had we been training all along, would it have happened? There's obviously been a lot of players getting knocks, and there's been a lot of games in a short period of time while we're getting prepared for this as well. So that's been challenging. And I guess, look, as we come into the week of championship, the biggest disappointment for me, and whereas it's understandable, the fact that we've got an allocation of 40 we can bring to the game. We've had to have a conversation with a number of people who would be very regular trainers with us who mightn't have made the senior panel, and I've had to say only I you can come to the game. So look, we're very lucky that yourselves are streaming it so that they at least can see it, but it's extremely disappointing to have that conversation with someone and saying, look, I know you're giving the commitment, I know you're doing everything we ask from you, but unfortunately you can't come to the game. And whereas people understand, it would be be naive to probably think that it hasn't left a little bit of a bitter taste in some people's mouth.
Okay. In relation to the new format of the championship, the condensed time and everything like that, is that something that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting one. So I guess the issue I would have had with the old one, not that the first round, wasn't relevant, but it wasn't the be all and end all. You were playing in April, and had you lost your game, your season would almost start again anyway. But with the group stage, it's just bringing in added importance, I think, to each game, and it's bringing a little bit of continuity that was maybe missing from the old system, and it's just going to allow us as well, I think, to hopefully build up momentum that would potentially be missing. It allows you to focus in a different way. Obviously, you'd been playing a first round and you wouldn't have a clue who you'd be playing in a second round. It's difficult to prepare. Now we know who we're playing in our first 3 games, so from a preparation perspective, it makes things a little bit easier from that way. And I think, the fact that it's only 2 teams to go through rather than 3 just makes, every game vitally important. Everybody's going to be looking to get a good start to it. Starting with a victory is going to make a huge difference just in terms of the position you put yourself into going into games 2 and 3. So I like the format now. I think it's going to be exciting, and I think it's probably going to bring out the best in teams, I think.
Okay, and the other thing that will be bringing out the best in a lot of teams is the fact that you have access to your county players, unlike possibly in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. So I guess, we've obviously dealt with the way the county is run, as long as I've been involved playing and everything. The biggest issue that you have with it would be the physical condition of the players when they come back, and that's not through anybody's fault. But obviously last year, if you look at the season that the Cork footballers had, they had a difficult league campaign. They had a positive experience in championship, I would say, reaching the Super 8, but it really took a toll on people's bodies. So you have people like Kevin Fly, for example. I think he played Sigerson for UCC last year. He played pretty much every game for Cork, and he was after a full season by the time he was coming back involved with the club, which he'd always give 100% to the club, and it's never in question. But just physically, you'd wonder what condition his body would be in. It's just natural that it's going to break down after a season that's as long as that. That's not the issue this year. We've got our Cork players are fresh, and they're absolutely chomping at the bit to play football. They're very keen to get going. So I've always found that when they come back into the fold, the training, the standards they set tend to raise the standard of the whole team, so the whole thing becomes a little bit better. So we're having that right from the start, and the biggest thing is not having any, wonders or doubts as to when things are going to take place. So it's been lovely for us, to be honest, having them involved, and it's certainly been a big positive for us.
Perfect.
And our thanks to Jamie O'Sullivan
Jamie,
and Ray Keating for their time during the week. 5 minutes before throw-in here, Brian Connery is our match referee. Paddy O'Shea and Tony Lean alongside me in the commentary box. We're just going to bring up the Bishopstown team onto our screen there. Paddy, one man there that has caught your eye already, wearing number 8, an old buddy.
Yeah, Paul O'Flynn surprised me when I came in actually and spotted him on side with the gear on. I hadn't realised that he transferred from Ballyclaw, All-Ireland winner with myself back in 2010 obviously. He was an excellent player back then. I haven't seen him, I'd say, in 6 or 7 years, but his game would have been high energy, cover the ground, good footballer, not bad in the air as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he's still the same type of player, if he's had to change like we all do due to age and pushing on a bit in the years. With him then, Jamie O'Sullivan centre back, another All-Ireland winner, and Ken O'Halloran from that time, along with number 3, Owen Burns. They'd be the kind of 4 experienced guys in the team. But there's a nice balance there as well, because looking through it there, they have some younger guys coming through as well, who I'm assuming will have freshened things up from. So it'll be interesting to see how they pan out with the mix of old and new.
And an interesting addition as well. We were talking to Brian Cuthbert last night. Odie Devlin from Tyrone in at corner forward. So we'll be excited to see what sort of talent is in store there. Douglas team now we're going to pull up on the screen there, and we're going to bring in Tony Lean. The one thing I'm going to ask you, Tony, no mention of owner Alan Cadigan. Should I be surprised by that?
No, no. In terms of that would be a decision, Colm, that was taken earlier in the year by Owen and Alan and Shane Kingston. They're concentrating on hurling this year. And I think it's probably, of course, they're huge losses. There's no point in saying they're not huge losses. But what it has done is it's provided clarity. So straight from the get-go, the Douglas management knew that Owen Cadigan or Alan Cadigan wasn't going to come in at some stage and wouldn't have to fit them in. So, but I mean, it's still, it's still that Douglas side is still a side sprinkled with inter-county experience. I mean, literally from Nathan Walsh to Sean Wilson to Brian Hartnett to Kevin Flahav to Owen Cotter. Another, Paddy was talking about the 2010 All-Ireland winning team. Owen Cotter was a part of that, playing in a new position now up front. Douglas, and I know we'll talk about this during the commentary, there are still issues in terms of Douglas's attack. They don't have still that go-to guy. And obviously one big bit of news from this thing is that Shawnee Powter is absent tonight, even though he's listed as number 18 on the bench. I mean, I can tell you he is actually not togging out. He has a hamstring tweak. It's not the issue. So Cork fans don't get concerned.
Is Ronan McCarthy tuning in now to discover this?
I'm led to believe it's more of a pinch than anything. It's a 2 to 3 weeker, and given that he'll miss tonight, and given Colm that the next 2 weeks are hurling, he might actually be back for the Valley Rovers game.
Okay, well, our thanks to Tony Lean and to Paddy O'Shea, and we'll be hearing their viewpoints throughout the course of the evening here. As you're hearing there, the press announcement asking us to observe social distancing, but first the national anthem. I want to bring you in there, Paddy, just as the teams are going into their formations. This is your first experience of a night like this. What's your thought now, having maybe seen the game as well too last night, just on the entire atmosphere and everything around this championship game?
Yeah, it's definitely strange. I mean, we're used to the crowds now shouting at this stage at the end of the national anthem, and it creates a bit of a buzz around the place. That's not the case tonight, obviously. Even watching the streaming of myself last night of the game, it was a bit eerie. You could hear every pin drop in the place, you could hear every conversation. But I'm sure once the game is 5 minutes in, the players will have zoned out of all that, and their minds will be just focused on what's going on in front of them in the game.
Okay, lads are looking around the field there, as is referee Brian Connery. We'll bring you the positional changes in a few moments' time. First one, though, I can tell you is that Niall Hartnett has joined Brian at midfield for Douglas. No surprises there, and it's Paula Flynn and Shane Lorden as named and as selected at midfield for Bishopstown. But it's Douglas on the attack straight away with Sean Wilson, and the kick from Wilson, and that is a fine score and a perfect start from a Douglas perspective, Tony.
Yes, it is indeed, Colm. It'd be interesting just to see that Hartnett pairing now, because it may not be. Niall may actually end up playing at 11. He's gone for the jump ball. At the moment, actually, Kevin Flahav is playing at 11 on Jamie Sullivan. So it'll be an interesting just to keep an eye whether Kevin Flahav stays at 11 or whether he drops into midfield with Brian Hartnett.
Sean O'Rourke there, cornerback, working well with his goalkeeper Ken O'Halloran. And it's Bishopstown who are coming out here with their corner forward all the way back there, Owen DC, working back to his full-back Owen Burns. Burns opting to fist all the way across the field. And out we come here with the other cornerback showing good footwork, David Quaid. It's in with Liam O'Driscoll, centre forward. Blue boots by Liam. Shane Lorden wearing number 9. Looked to be a bit of a pull there by Hartnett, but eventually at the second time of asking, Brian Connery awarding the free in for the opening free of the night.
It'll be important, Colm, from a Bishopstown point of view, to actually get off to a decent start here. I mean, Paddy was talking earlier about some of the experienced players they have in the side, but they've introduced a lot of young players. There's 2 17-year-olds in the starting lineup, and there's a real sense of transition about Bishopstown. So I think what they need, Ken O'Halloran pops this over the bar, they're back on parity. I just think in terms of actually keeping in the game early, I think it would be important, certainly for some of the younger lads, to build their confidence.
Powerful kick by Ken, but accuracy off. Scored 3 points when the sides met in the last championship game, but accuracy letting him down on that occasion. The veteran, I don't think he'll mind me saying it, Brian Boyle in goals for Douglas, has been there for quite some time. Intermediate championship winner, would you believe, all the way back in 2009, and has been the custodian for Douglas for the last number of years. Very much the elder statesman for the Douglas men. Owen Cotter was wearing number 10, and a nice offload by him to his midfielder Kevin Flahav. Great ball by Flahav into Hartnett, has a runner outside him, and the shot, it's trickled, but well saved by the goalkeeper. And regrouping there is centre forward Liam O'Driscoll, who's lost possession. And here come Douglas again. Shot and off the crossbar from the full forward Conor Russell there. And that was a lucky escape for Bishopstown, who should really have done better in clearing it first time round. Shane Lorden. There's a runner outside him. He's a wing back, Jack Murphy. Going through the hands here. Very slow, patient build up by Bishopstown. And it's Shane Lorden who is eventually after winning the sideline there. But Bishopstown nearly authors of their own misfortune there on that occasion, after one goal chance went to begging, failed to clear their lines, and only for the crossbar getting in the way, we would have seen the opening goal of the game. It's Jimmy Costello here in front of me who's holding the ball, but the linesman is saying no, it's going in the opposite direction, and Brendan Powter was quickly in to take it and over as far as Dylan Ward, and they're working it there through the hands in with Brian Hartnett. And back to his Sean Wilson, who scored that opening point. Swills, I'm told, is the nickname for the man wearing number 6 for Douglas this evening. Beautiful evening for football here in Páirc Uí Rinn. We had some showers a little earlier this evening, but it's bone dry now. Great ball in there towards midfielder Kevin Flahav. Still Flahav plays it back to his for the second time tonight, off the crossbar. And on this occasion, some reward as the ball eventually finds its way over the crossbar.
Yeah, that's the second attack now. That's 2 consecutive attacks for Douglas where they ran the ball down through the centre, through Hartnett and Flahive at the end of it. They'll be very disappointed that they haven't put away at least one of those goal chances, and I think Bishopstown are going to have to close up the centre, because if they leave Douglas run through the centre like that, they're going to be opened up. It's only a matter of time before the first goal comes.
It seems Brandy to be one thing only though when they're going in. They're trying to get that early goal.
They do, and really once with the first opportunity that they had, and when it bunks back off the crossbar, the sensible thing to do really, as most coaches would say, is just pop it over the bar and take your score. But they went for the goal again the second time, and again missed it. It was unlucky, he hit the crossbar, but that's 3 goal chances and 1 untaken, so they'll feel a bit unlucky in that regard, I think.
Very patient build-up play by comparison at the other end of the field, and coming to naught there is the kick overplayed, and also easy for Brian Boyle to get Douglas up and running yet again. Just to remind you again that capacity here tonight capped at 200. You can see on the far side of the field Douglas have commandeered the dugouts there, and that means that Bishopstown are on this side of the field up in the stands. It's Niall Hartnett racing through there. Great kick from Hartnett, just about 30 yards out and straight over the crossbar. This lad is very exciting, isn't he?
I mean, if you're Cullum over on the Bishopstown bench now, you've got to have alarm bells ringing straight away at Niall Hartnett. There's no Paul O'Flynn dropped back. As we suggested, Niall only went in for the jump ball. He's been playing centre forward. Jamie O'Sullivan went back to him. Since then, I've looked and I've seen Paul O'Flynn, and now I've seen Shane Norden trying to pick him up but losing him. The trouble with trying to pick up Niall Hartnett, this guy is 6'6", 6'7", and he is seriously rapid. And if he actually is going south to north or north to south, like, you are in big trouble unless you actually have a step on him at the start. So he is causing major problems. There's a break in play here. You're looking over and you're thinking the Bishopstown management must be saying, okay, we need to actually lock up that and get something tighter on Niall Hartnett.
Yeah, and as we saw last night in the other game, the way for spells Bishopstown should possibly learn something from the way Ballincollig marshalled Ian Maguire at times last night. They desperately tried to bottle him up. Admittedly, it didn't match for the full hour.
I do think though, and Paddy was talking about it before the game, Colin, you look at that diamond: Sean Wilson, Brian Hartnett, Kevin Flahav, Niall Hartnett. It's a very athletic diamond in the middle for Douglas, and they could do damage. Could be 2 or 3 goals up.
We have to remember as well too that the forward mark is back in play. Remember that from a couple of months ago. It was a big topic du jour. We forgot it in all the hype of coronavirus. High kick there came from Dara Costello, but again Boyle very solid under the high ball, and again very calmly getting his defence up and running. Simple pass and nothing too complicated into that man Hartnett again. Lovely showing by the centre forward, and here it goes in towards the corner forward, and well cut out though in the end by Jack Murphy's after getting on the ball quite a lot tonight. Finds his midfielder Paul O'Flynn, an All-Ireland winner from Ballyclaw, old sparring partner of Paddy's back in the day, and it's with midfielder Shane Lorden being forced to turn around, being harried and harassed. 1, 2, 3 Douglas men around him, and in the end it's out with the midfielder there. Big Brian Hartnett takes a shoulder from Jack Flynn, bounces off of that and opts to go right across the field because he's a runner waiting over there on the far side. It's his wing forward Liam Deneen though opting to go back and play a bit of a 1-2. Still Deneen on the 21, Deneen on the 14, looking back to Hartnett half blocked down. That's Niall, not Brian, and it's the corner forward there, Finbar Desmond, trying to borrow it out, but it's Jack Murphy who's coming out, tenacious wing back, and harshly I would have thought called for overcarrying, but referee Brian Conroy has done all the courses and all the refereeing assessments, so he's better qualified than me to be calling that, and the end result is going to be a free to Douglas on the edge of the exclusion zone.
Yeah, I think the obvious thing here from Bishopstown point of view is, as myself and Tony mentioned before the game, Douglas will be very, very physical, and because Bishopstown have a couple of guys who are young and who are inexperienced, they'll get bullied to an extent by Bishopstown if this continues. Their 2 main issues at the moment are Hartnett at centre forward is causing big problems. He needs to be man-marked out of the game. Bishopstown are also playing with 2 inside forwards only, and the problem that they have in that is that the ball hasn't been delivered in enough. So they're kind of hanging on to the ball around the middle a bit too long. They're being turned over. They really got to get the heads up and get the ball into those two guys in the inside forward in as early as possible.
Conor Russell's free has pushed it out to a 4-point game. 4 points from Douglas. No score yet from Bishopstown, as we're just after gone past 9 minutes of this Bon Secours Cork Premier Senior Football Championship game. It's been brought to you in our new partnership, we in the Irish Examiner, with the Cork County Board, part of a 3-year live broadcasting deal, and wonderfully all these games being brought to you free to air in 2020, and we're looking forward to bringing you so much GA Championship action over the next 2 months or so. So much to look forward to, and we have hurling to come next weekend.
Just an early change there, Colm. It's inside 10 minutes, but Sam Collins, the Douglas corner forward, has gone off. Didn't limp off, no, but I'm looking at him over there, and he's actually putting on his bib, so it looks like I presume he's after picking up some kind of an injury. But Dara Kelly, who would be similar, young, lively, very quick, low centre of gravity, he's actually after coming in corner forward.
Okay, while all that was happening, a free being awarded, Odie Devlin taking it quickly, the young lad from Tyrone, and yet again it all breaks down in and around that 14-yard area for Ballincollig, who so desperately need a score now with 10 minutes of this championship game underway. Here come Douglas yet again. It's the wing back there, Brendan Powter, but ran out of steam, but luckily had a man in support. The man that has the ball now is Brian Hartnett. Hartnett off the left leg. Not what you want, I think, is an understatement there from Tony. Had possibly the option of looking inside. He seemed to have a bit more time in the ball.
What we were actually saying, Colin, what we were referring to there was from a Bishopstown point of view. Niall Hartnett was inside on the edge of the square, 1-on-1, and certainly if they had looked up, that's a mismatch in Douglas's favour. You know, I mean, the only thing that's wrong with the Douglas performance so far, and they've been very, very good, is they're 4 points up, and they probably should have at least two. Would they, Paddy? I think should have 2-5 at this stage.
They should easily have 2 goals anyway, certainly. And Bishopstown are really, really struggling to get that first score over the bar. They haven't really settled down that forward line. And again, I go back to that point where they're probably being bullied a bit. Those young guys in there maybe at the moment aren't up to it physically. And
Conor Russell's shot there,
so that's another chance wasted from Douglas. So as Tony says, they could have a lot more scores on the board by now.
Okay, but you kind of get that sense of nervousness in the Bishopstown ranks every time that Hartnett is on the ball, whether it be Brian or whether it be Niall.
Yeah.
And wonderful support play. Time and again, the man in possession always seems to have an option either behind him or to his side, and that has been key for them. Right, back with the action, and back with the corner forward down there is Owen Deasy. Been forced to come way back in an effort to get something going. Ball is up and almost well fielded. That would have been a forward mark there by Dara Costello, and yet again it all breaks down, and Douglas are back in possession and back rushing forward with Luke McGrath. Finbar Desmond taking their time, have that 4-point cushion, so no panicking, and it's Kevin Flahav steps inside. Nice show, but again has the option inside him. Lovely little interplay yet again by Douglas, who works it out to Dylan Ward. Ward onto his left. That's going to be a great score by the wing back. That is a wonderful piece of interplay. About 7 or 8 passes from where play broke down, and nice to see your wing back coming up for a score.
Well, by the way, that is the third defender now for Douglas to score, so it's showing, you know, that they're looking dangerous, Colin, from all over the field. From a Bishopstown point of view, and we spoke about this just at the start of the game, it's really almost irrelevant now how they get a score. They need to get a score on the board just to settle down, because this is the type of game with a young team making their championship debut, some of them, that a game can run away from you very quickly.
Yeah, and that seems to be the case here. Time and time again, Bishopstown have been creating the chances out around this area. It's only when the ball crosses the 21-yard line that they seem to be in trouble. Now, can we magic something here from the big midfielder, the man wearing number 8, the man originally from Ballyclaw, Paul O'Flynn, and eventually, after 13 and a half minutes, Ballincollig have a score in this championship game at Páirc Uí Rinn.
Yeah, that's a great score work from Paul, in fairness. Showing his experience, knowing that the side needed a score to settle things down. So he came in off the shoulder very well. That time, to be fair to Bishopstown, they didn't look as panicked on the ball in the forward line. They held onto it, threw it around and waited for the right option, and when it arrived, Paul was able to put it over the bar.
Plenty of space for Brian Hartnett to exploit. Brushes past the tackle, finds Niall, back to Brian on the edge of the exclusion zone, opting to go back yet again to his full forward. Lovely little dink of a pass in by the full forward. Shot coming up here, great block there on the centre back there, and it's going to be a free out. Sean Wilson was winding up there, but super block by Bishopstown defender to clear it, and it's out with David Quaid now as Douglas are trying desperately to funnel numbers back. It's out with Liam O'Driscoll into his corner forward, or full forward should I say, and that's Simon Collins. Gone back to O'Driscoll again, to Jack Murphy, and back out to O'Flynn, who scored that point just about a minute and a half ago. The first point of the night for Bishopstown. Nathan Goff is on the ball, has Simon Collins offloaded, but referees spotted an indiscretion, and back it comes with Douglas, and one of these sweeping kicks right across the field is going to land into the arms of their full forward Conor Russell. Taking a bit more than he expected out of it, but Russell has it onto his left, but looks like it's going to drop a bit short, and despite the best impressions or best efforts of the Douglas man.
Cullum, the irony with all these gaps we're seeing in the Bishopstown defence is they're actually playing with a sweeper. Owen Deasy's actually playing back behind midfield, and I'm not blaming Owen, it's not Owen's fault at all, and we're just stopping for a water break here, but even there, and Paddy and myself were even looking there, Conor Russell was in 40 yards of space on this. If you're actually playing with a 7th defender, you shouldn't, I know it's a big pitch and all that, but you actually shouldn't have that amount of space. The Douglas have obviously come out today and deciding we're going to go high tempo from the get-go. We're going to banish any notions that Bishopstown have of winning this game, because obviously Douglas will be strong favourites, and it's an old saying, never give an outsider a chance to actually get a sniff that they're in the game. Douglas have done that. If they had been more ruthless, we'd actually be talking about a dead game here already. But just defensively, I'm just worried for Bishopstown's sake that there's just gaps all over the place. It actually looked, do you remember Cullum last year in the county semi-final, Nemo and Douglas, which we commentated on? Yeah. It's actually like a whole reversal. Nemo were finding all sorts of spaces in the Douglas defence, and today Douglas are finding worrying amounts of space in the Bishopstown defence.
Is there a possibility, and you pointed out there about Owen being back as a sweeper, that this is a ploy that maybe hadn't been worked on enough, and that they're kind of a little unsure as to who's to go where?
Listen to me, there's so many teams now, everybody, Paddy will know this better than me, it's kind of called like the +1 defence, as nearly every team now, almost as a safety measure, plays one. Dylan Ward is doing similarly. Look, obviously it gives you a bit of a blanket of security. It is something you have to work on. The difficulty I have with it sometimes is, for instance, when Bishopstown are behind now by 5 points to 0 or 5 points to 1, and they're playing a sweeper, you're giving free possession, Paddy, aren't you, from every kick out. They're not pushing up, so basically you're guaranteeing Douglas possession from their kick out every time. I don't know what you think, Paddy.
See, the interesting thing on that really is if a team decides to leave 6 forwards up there, then you're going to have 6 back there marking them. If they decide to take one of those corner forwards out around the middle, the opposition have a decision to make. Do I push the extra back out on him, or do I leave him back sitting inside space? Sometimes when you're leaving him there just because somebody has gone out, he might never have played that role, so he might be unsure of when to push and when to hold. Communication is vital there, but I think Bishopstown at this stage really need to just push on and go man for man at this stage, because they're only inviting Douglas on.
Yeah, I think, Cullum, to answer your point, I think with a sweeper system, sometimes people fall into the notion that I just sit here and I mark space. Space never got a score in his life.
And they don't engage on the ball.
Yes, exactly. So I just think it's something Bishopstown probably need to look at.
We're back up and running. Our water break was a rather swift one there, and our thanks to Paddy and to Tony for their analysis there. We'll be hearing more from them in the course of the game. Kevin Flahav there, a bit winded, but he's back on his feet, and it's Brian Hartnett that's there. He's going to look back again, and again, as we said with Douglas, they all seem to have that extra few seconds there, extra few options, and it's back in with Flahav, who's recovered from his bit of a bang to the ribs, I think, there was looking there to play a 1-2 with Hartnett, who was forced to readjust his step. Did well to do that and sucks in about 3 players and was heading for goal, but referee had blown his whistle at that stage, and a bit of back chat as seeing the free brought forward another bit, and making life easier for free taker for Douglas. Conor Russell to add to his tally scored that free from in front of the goals there about 10 minutes ago. This bit farther to the side, and there'll be a little word and a quarter coming the way of I think it's Shane Lorden on this occasion for something that was done or said, or maybe a little bit of an elbow in there as well. Anyway, he's after getting a little word and a tick from Brian Conroy. Here's Conor Russell, and Russell pushing it out to 6 points to 1 as we're coming up on 20 minutes of this Bon Secours Cork Premier Senior Football Championship clash here. It's Bishopstown v Douglas in Páirc Uí Rinn, being brought to you on the Irish Examiner's website. It's part of our partnership with the Cork County Board. Hope you're enjoying the game wherever you are. Very conscious of all the hundreds and thousands of fans of these two clubs, and indeed GA fans in general, who can't be at matches this weekend due to the social distancing and protocols and procedures around matches. So hopefully you might be at your kitchen table or in your sitting room or on your phone, you're still enjoying the footage. You're not missing much in terms of atmosphere. It's very, very different times that we live in, and very noticeable here in Páirc Uí Rinn this evening, where you can almost hear the conversations of the players on the field. And as I warned last night, maybe those of a nervous disposition might want to lower down the volume on occasions throughout the course of these games. Nice ball by Wilson in towards his full forward, and it's bounced up perfectly into the man wearing number 22, Dara Kelly, and works all the way back out to Brian Hartnett, who on this occasion has driven it wide.
Interesting there, Colm. You looked there a couple of minutes ago. That free was given away by Nathan Goff for Bishopstown, caught dallying on the ball. But you've got to remember, Nathan Goff came on and played in the All-Ireland minor final last year with Cork, came on and played all the extra time. Bishopstown are going with young fellas, and if they're going to go with young fellas, they've got to realise that there is going to be mistakes. There are going to be errors, and they've just got to they've got to grin and bear it for the time being. This is the only experience that these young fellas will need, is to actually be put into, I was going to say, the white heat of a championship battle. It's a little less than white heat, obviously, with no crowd here. But still, the intensity is huge, and it's a huge jump up for young lads like that, so people will have to be patient.
Ken O'Halloran and Bishopstown being caught up out of the old rules, or the new rules, should I say, regarding the requisite 14 yards, and they're punished there in the end by Liam Deneen from the throw ball breaking down to Deneen, and it has been punished and pushed it out to 7 points to 1. You'd almost forget, Paddy, all these rules that we were talking about back in January and February, and we were constantly talking about, and here we are in July having to relearn them again.
Well, I'll be very honest with you, I'm playing championship tomorrow myself, and I'm going to have to study the rules before the game, because I'm still unsure of what half of them are, but I'm sure one of our lads will refresh my memories. Just on those kickouts from Bishopstown and from Ken O'Halloran, it's interesting actually that at half time the stats will show that Douglas have won, or my apologies, Bishopstown have won primary possession from Ken's kickouts, but that's because Douglas seem happy to back off zonal, leave the corner back, have it, and then they're pressing him, and Bishopstown are finding it even hard to get past their own halfway line when they do get the ball up there. Douglas are just too physical. They're leaving him have possession back towards their own goal, and then they're really putting the pressure on him.
We're seeing 2 subs coming on, by the way, there for Bishopstown. Diarmuid Lester is the man wearing number 17, and I think it's Brian O'Neill is the man who's wearing number 22. And talk about a bit of a baptism of fire there for Brian. His first action is going to be this free, which he hits off his left leg, and to his credit, he's put it over the crossbar. One of those that is gone out is Shane Lorden, the midfielder, and we'll have a quick look as to see who else has made way. Bit more challenging from a reporting perspective, trying to keep track of the subs and everything in this new dynamic. And let's see now if these 2 new additions can spring some life into Bishopstown, who are 5 points adrift. It's with the centre forward there, Liam O'Driscoll. down that far side of the field is calling for it is O'Neill. All the way back to Nathan Goff, Tony was mentioning there a few moments ago. Getting in his way almost through was Dara Costello, and Costello, while falling, gets the shot off, but falls about a foot short, and Brian Boyle taking that right under his crossbar and getting Dylan Ward and company going there on that far side.
It's a pity that ball dropped short into the goalkeeper's hands, because that would have been consecutive scores for Bishopstown, which is something that they badly need at this stage.
Good work being done there by Finbar Desmond, who's come out a fair bit. Brendan Powter is the man that's chasing after the ball there. He's happy to leave it to his wing forward Owen Cotter. Back to big Brendan Hartnett. Still Brendan Hartnett. Nice little turn there by Hartnett. Oh, that's a Kieran MacDonald special there off the outside of the boot, and that's a fine score. Fine score from the midfielder Brian Hartnett.
That's the 7th different score, Colin, for Douglas, like 7 different scores out of 8 points. Now I know we might be saying that they should have had a couple of goals, but that's a very even spread, you know.
Diarmuid Lester playing a 1-2 with Owen Burns. Owen Burns is the full back, and he's the man that's holding on to the ball right now, being pulled back, but referee waving play on, and Liam O'Driscoll, well, maybe Liam would have hoped that the referee had pulled play back there, got the shot off a bit too quickly, and is only troubling the pigeons down that far side there in the trees. Brian Boyle, interesting to see what Brian will do there on this kick out. Again, it seems to have all the time in the world, and picks out Luke McGrath with ease. That extra man with Bishopstown having brought back Owen Deasy, giving Brian an easy night in terms of his kick-out strategy. Niall Hartnett, he's like a Gulliver there for a second with 2 or 3 hanging off him, and the end result is they can't bring him down. They halt his progress, and it's going to be a free now, and it's Conor Russell who will be entrusted with this. What's very noticeable is the interaction of the players and the referee. I think because of the reduced capacities, conversations and words being picked up by the referees, and maybe not some nice words as well for early evening listening. Good hands by Ken O'Halloran with the sun in his eyes, the cap on. It's been a big week for Ken and his wife Kiki. New arrival in the household on Wednesday, baby daughter Robin. And our congratulations to the O'Halloran family on the new arrival. Now, can Bishopstown deliver something? It's with their corner forward, Oni Devlin. Big reputation from Tyrone. So Dara Costello eventually getting it over, and that was a fine score. And Paddy, you're nodding a badly wanted one as well.
I am nodding, yeah, because that came from a ball dropped short from Douglas into Ken's hands. They transitioned the ball much better that time up the field, got into a good scoring position, and there's only 5 points in this game really, and there should be a lot more in it at this stage.
Yeah, and the other question as well, which we'll chat about maybe at half time as well, conditioning of teams. It'll be interesting to see how each of these sides will be coming down the home stretch, as we've seen in a lot of the matches over the last number of days that teams are still struggling in the last 10 minutes as they're coming up to championship pace. Championship accuracy is in though, and in vogue very much from Conor Russell. We've seen him from frees, that time from play, and that from 40 yards, a fine score.
Douglas will need a Conor Russell to step up in this year's championship. We can talk about all the Douglas forwards that aren't here, Colin, but any team who has aspirations to win a county championship has to have at least 1, if not 2, go-to forwards, and it's been an Achilles heel in Douglas for a long time. Conor Russell has experience now of an All-Ireland under-20 win with Cork. He was on that panel, and you'd like to think he'll progress and maybe step up and take a lead role up front this year.
Now back we go with Bishopstown, and looking much more lively now with Dara Kelly being pulled back. Should I say Brian O'Neill? I'm getting my number 22s confused there. Brian O'Neill, apologies. as we said, he only came on about 5 minutes ago, and his first touch of the ball was from a free, which he converted. Let's see, can he make it 2 from 2? The two subs, as I said, that Bishopstown introduced was Brian O'Neill and Diarmuid Lester. Lester has been on the ball once or twice, do a couple of good interplays by him in the last few minutes. So we're about 35 yards out, off the left peg. Nice connection, nice strike yet again by the young man Brian O'Neill. And he's popped that one over the crossbar, and it's brought it back to 9 points to 4. And it's anxious times if you're of Douglas' position in the last few minutes, as Bishopstown getting a small bit of a stranglehold on things. That was one of those marks we were talking about a little earlier, Paddy, that you'll be brushing up on, and I hope you'll be delivering in your championship game tomorrow evening.
I'll try my best. I think after this many years I'd be able to do it, but it's still a struggle, to be honest.
Well, we can always blame the fellas who are getting the ball. The quality was never in doubt from your end.
Well, I'd like to see Bishopstown be a bit more aggressive on Douglas kickouts. You can see from the Bishopstown kickouts, the Douglas players are shouting and they're roaring and they're making life very, very uncomfortable, whereas I think the Douglas keepers getting the kickouts off into space a bit too easy.
Brian Hartnett on his own, trying to take on about 3 fellas, lifting them up over his head and everything like that. Referee though stepping in. We're just watching there out of shot that Brendan Powter is getting involved in a couple of little skirmishes there, but the linesman is quickly in to restore order and to have a word with young Brian O'Neill and with Powter down there. We're getting a bit of treatment as well to one of the Bishopstown players. Nothing untoward. Just looks to be a bit of a leg injury, but we're all back in the feet. And we're going to be back with a Bishopstown ball awarded for that free. Awarded for the overcarrying by Brian Hartnett a few moments ago. Diarmuid Lester is the man who'll take it, looking around for options. He's going to go right across the field to his cornerback Sean O'Rourke. Ball spun off Finbar Desmond there. Niall Hartnett did his best to keep it in play, but it had gone out over the sideline, and it's Diarmuid Lester down here who's going to take the resultant sideline. 31 and a half minutes gone, 9 points to Douglas, 4 points to Bishopstown, and Diarmuid Lester avoiding the best intention there of Brian Hartnett. And here comes the wing forward, gone right across the field to full forward Simon Collins. Back to Lester. Lester off the right. That's going to be a great effort by him. That is going to be a great score by Diarmuid Lester.
He's made a difference, Colm, in fairness, hasn't he? He's actually made a difference, and he's come on obviously as a wing back. I know Diarmuid would be known more as a hurler, but he's very much a dual player. It's kind of small but surprising, in actual fact, that he didn't start, but he has made a difference from wing back since he's come on. He's been on the front foot, and that's a super score.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that Tony mentioned before the game that he was surprised Diarmuid Lester wasn't playing. He's made a big impact since he came on. He's going to all our dead ball situations, restarting the play and getting the return ball as well. And to be fair, Brian O'Neill, who also came on, has done well. So that's 2 good substitutions, and they've made a difference to the game.
Yeah, very good interplay by Leicester before that score itself. It's Hartnett back to Dara Kelly. Finding its way to Brendan Powter. Powter has gone back to his full forward, and that is another fine score from Conor Russell. What's he at now, Tony?
4 points, 2 from play, 2 frees, Colm, and hit the crossbar at least once. So you might be saying his tally should be even greater than 4. Scoreboard, by the way, is saying 10 points to 4 at this stage, which I'm not certain. Does that mean that they didn't give?
Yeah, we have it as
10-5. Sorry, it's just the scoreboard hasn't been updated yet. So, it is half time, Colm, at 10 points to 5, and there's hardly high anxiety in the Douglas dressing room. But you will. Players are human. You do go in there. Wouldn't you, Paddy? And you'd say to yourself, we're 10-5 up. we should be like 2-12. This game should be dead. No, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, because it keeps everybody on their toes and all that thing. But it's something I mentioned, Colm, in the first half. You know, Douglas has never won a senior football championship. You know, people I'm sure outside the club look and they say, like, you know, with all the star-studded names that they have, but I say we, obviously, sorry, because obviously it's my own club in Cork, but I mean, Douglas as a club, like, they don't now have a Shane Kingston because he's gone hurling. They don't have an Alan Cadigan because he's gone hurling. You know, they don't have, as I was mentioning, that you look through, Paddy, you look through any of the teams that are contenders this year. You look at Castlehaven, they have the Hurleys. You look at Carbery Rangers, John Hayes. You look at Nemo, they have any number of scoring forwards. That's why they're county champions. That's right. Douglas are the type of side, Colm, that you're looking there, and at the moment you're saying to yourself, they're still going to have to find forwards who are your go-to forwards, who you can rely on every day. And that's why I mentioned Conor Russell there at the moment. I think Conor Russell is playing so far out the field. You know, at the times he likes to come deep, and you're saying to yourself, if I'm looking at him, I'm saying, like, realistically, I want Conor Russell between the two telephone poles there inside, and I don't want him moving. He's a big, powerful guy. He's quick. Get up, get him the ball. You see, like, he has a powerful shot on him. You know, it's that type of deadly finisher that you can rely on game after game after game, that Douglas are looking for and have been looking for a while. No, it may not stop them today. 10 points is still a decent half-time lead, but it's just something that is a nagging concern in the back of my head, that when they really need, you know, because there are going to be games where they're going to have to dig out a result. And, like, you know, if it's a Nemo, they're going to pull a Paul Kerrigan out of it, they're going to pull a Barry Driscoll, they're going to pull a Luke Conley out of it, Paddy, you know, and these guys are actually going to bail them out. And I just think to be a contender, to be a last four team, which Douglas were last year and should be, and should be expecting to be, I think that's the kind of forward that they're going to have to find, develop. There's no transfer market in the GA, you can't bring him in.
Well, it's half time, and basically what Tony is saying is, if Douglas had that marquee forward that we're talking about, this game would be over by now. Because Douglas have scored 10 points, but they've missed more than that when you look at their chances. And each one of those misses, all it's done is given Bishopstown that bit of hope. So Bishopstown are in here now, and they're thinking, lads, this game here, so we're in touch and distance. We've come into a great game. The two substitutions have made a big difference. Douglas, to an extent, have been trying not to win the game, because they should be out the gap here now at half time. The game could necessarily be over, and that would be a very, very different Bishopstown group at half time. They'd be distraught, the heads would be down. No, they're not. No, they're biting now a bit, and they're looking forward to the second half, I'd say. The marquee forward, the absence of the marquee forward for Douglas, it is a problem. Now, to be fair to Conor Russell, he's got 4 points out of 10, which isn't bad. No. He's going okay, he's showing for the ball an awful lot, but again, he's getting on the ball maybe that bit too far away from the goal. Niall Hartnett is excellent, lads. Every time he gets on the ball, it looks like Douglas are going to score. And actually, every time he gets on the ball, it looks like they're going to score a goal, because he goes past his man. For such a big guy, he can move. He's very mobile. He drops the shoulder, goes around his man. The thing he does is he draws another body towards him. Then it opens up somebody else, and he's very unselfish. He pops the ball off. There was 4 goal chances there that Douglas could have taken. That's 12 points. That's a big difference at half time.
It's scary, Colm, in a good way for Cork football and for its future, that Niall Hartnett is not 19 years of age. He's still 18.
It's incredible to even say it.
I mean, I was saying the same about his brother, Paddy, when they were winning the All-Ireland Under-20 Championship, and Brian was midfield, and he has this fantastic gift, Colm, that you just can't, Paddy will know this better than me, you can't coach into a fella, is the ability to do the simple things right all the time. He makes good decisions. I mean, Niall is a more explosive type of talent in terms of, like, as I said, he's 6'6", 6'7", and he can just go like, you know, like the clappers. So he is like still 18. You can imagine Ronan McCarthy brought him in for a while this year to Cork, not really to bring him into the squad, but just to get him used, Paddy, to the ways of a senior intercounty setup. Have a look at him. Obviously he's Ronan's own club in Douglas, so Ronan McCarthy will know him very well. But when you look at him, you look at the Conor Corbetts out in Clyde, you look at the young talent, you know, I mean, there is... I think there are good times ahead. Like, there are young talents to be groomed here in Cork, and you're looking at one of them tonight. I think he is a serious prospect. When you consider he's 18, give him 3 more years even of development. What will he be like as a 21-year-old? Okay,
we've spoken about Douglas. Let's talk about Bishopstown.
Well, the two glaring factors for me are the 2 subs who came on have made a big difference. The Brian O'Neill taking the frees, I think he's put 2 of them over. He's showing for the ball all the time, And that bit of a squabble he had there in midfield. I'm not sure who it was against, but he got stuck in. He threw his
Brendan
elbows
Powter,
up.
and he was giving a few weight divisions away there.
He was,
yeah?
to be fair, but Douglas had bullied Bishopstown for the first 20 minutes of the game, and Bishopstown couldn't get the ball out of the defence. They couldn't transition the ball forward. He showed a bit of bite. Maybe that's what they needed, was a bit of a shamaz like that around the middle. Maybe some more fellas could have joined in there. Nothing stupid, but just to stand up and stick their chest out and say, we might be young, but we're not going to be run over here at all. He showed good bite there, in fairness. And the big difference is Dermot Lester. He's eager to get on the ball. You spoke about decision making. He nearly always makes the right decision on it as well. So I think they've got their gander up a bit here, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
I said earlier, Colm, I think I might have said it before the game started, like in terms of Bishopstown being in transition, I'm sure there are people who kind of, would have a half an eye on the county league, and they might have looked at the league tables. Now it's a truncated league obviously this year, and they would have looked down the tables and they're saying, where are Bishopstown? And suddenly they see they're playing Division 4 football.
That's right.
And you're kind of saying, what has happened, Bishopstown? But like, you think about it, I remember a couple of years ago playing Bishopstown, they had this guy up front. Do you remember Fiacre Odasunig? He was actually a doctor in the CUH, super forward, the exact type of marquee forward we're talking about 5 minutes ago. He emigrated to Australia. Noel O'Donovan is injured. Michael Power is injured. Sam Oakes is gone to Dublin. He's not playing with Bishopstown anymore. Conor Dorman, an inter-county footballer, is gone to Australia. Dan Donovan, the big lad, has gone back to Kilmackabie.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally half a team that you're actually talking about. So Bishopstown has made a point, and by the way, you had the chairman of the club in co-commentary with you last night, and Brian Cuthbert, and he obviously has a vision for the club. They're obviously going with youth. They're going with these young fellas, and they knew tonight it could go pear-shaped for them, and as Paddy said, it could very well have gone pear-shaped if Douglas were more clinical in the first 15 minutes. But they are going with a youth now. They're going with a new young kind of a crew. As I said, I was just a bit surprised, given how young these lads were, that the likes of a Dermot Lester, who has a bit of experience. Now, by the way, we don't know this thing. We're not at training, and it could be that Dermot has been concentrating on hurling and he hasn't been given. We don't know the reasons behind it.
Yeah.
But certainly Paddy is right. That the young lad, Brian O'Neill, come on, kicked 2 lovely scores with left foot. Leicester went up and caught 3 points. They only have 5 points, and the subs have actually more than half of them already. So I just think if you're in the Douglas dressing room right now, I mean, we've been talking about Bishopstown, but in relation to Bishopstown, if you're in the Douglas dressing room right now, what you're saying is, let's get out there and let's treat the first 10 minutes of the second half like a game in itself. Let's put these guys to bed now, because you do not, as Paddy says, you do not want to be given Bishopstown the notion of, we've been barbecued there for 15 minutes, but all of a sudden now we're only 5 points down at half time, 1 goal, and we're right back in the game.
Yeah. The next 10 minutes are vital, because the next 10 minutes will either give Douglas the upper hand and we'll finish the game off ultimately, or they might feed Bishopstown some more hope. And if there's still only 5 points in this 15 minutes to go, maybe 10 minutes to go, we wouldn't write Bishopstown off. One goal and all of a sudden the whole thing has changed. Just getting back to those younger guys as well, actually, Tony, before we carry on, they've been at a disadvantage too, because backing the young guys is the way to go as far as I'm concerned, but they've missed out on the league games that they would have had due to the COVID-19, so now they're kind of getting their experience through championship games, whereas they should have got them throughout the summer in league games.
Absolutely.
It's very hard to be too harsh on them.
They did. They actually only played 2 Division 4 games, would you believe, this year. Gabriel Rangers was one of them, and surprisingly they beat Bantry. Well, not surprisingly, I don't know what Bantry had. 16 points to 4. Bishopstown beat Bantry in the league.
Score, yeah.
Great scoring. I mean, because Bantry would be a strong side. So I just think, as you said, it's a great point. They could have obviously benefited from a lot more competitive games, but let's just see how they shape up. First 10 minutes, Colm, I think very, very important.
Okay, we're just double checking that last score by Dermot Lester was waved wide. We had it down as a point. The clubs and Twitter have it as 10-4 as well. So we just have to double check on that.
I have to say, we've a pretty good vantage point here. I thought it was a point. I have to say, it looked to me like it was very much inside the post.
It
looked like a clear
looked
point.
good there, but we'll check with some of our other media colleagues there to see what they have recorded it as. And we'll work on with the official scoreboard at the moment as 10-4, but we can update that now. As the lad said, Douglas wanted to come storming out of the traps, and they've done just that with Brian Hartnett within about 25 seconds, kicking the ball over the bar and pushing it out to 11 points to 4, which has pushed it out to a 7-point gap within, as I said, seconds of the restart here. Going short from Ken O'Halloran out as far as David Quaid. And here comes Bishopstown. Options for the full-back Owen Burns, who's battling very hard and being held up by Dara Kelly, and the full-back fouls the ball, and it's a free which has been quickly taken and has found its way to Owen Cotter over that far side. Cotter going short to Kevin Flav. Flav though loses possession, and Bishopstown coming back out with Owen Deasy, doctor actually out in CUH. He's been a very busy man obviously in the last number of months, and I'm sure putting football and everything in perspective. Jack Murphy, he's got Leinster outside him if he wants. He's decided to go straight up as far as centre back Jamie O'Sullivan. Good acrobatics by O'Sullivan to gain the ball and win the free, and it's going to be Paul O'Flynn who will take it, and Jamie taking a few seconds there to tie the boot and catch his breath and get back onto his feet. Good ball into a man wearing number 22, Brian O'Neill. Scored those 2 points off the ground after being introduced, getting some close attention there, but definitely not afraid of it. And there was a lovely little pass there by Liam O'Driscoll, but unfortunately eluded his attacking colleagues and easily taken up by Boyle and transitioned out by Douglas, who are coming again. Elor Porca in the centre of the field with that man Hartnett out to his colleague Flav, and it's now with Brendan Powter. Back to Flav, and again has another runner inside his midfielder Brian Hartnett. Knocked back though, and Powter and Flav. But Tony was mentioning there the doing the simple things right a little earlier, and cardinal error by Flav, who's dropped the ball, touching it off the ground, and free, which means Bishopstown now have possession. Kept in play wonderfully there in by the corner forward Odie Devlin. It's 2 or 3 lads desperately trying to get on it. Simon Collins is one of those, still Collins, and great defending by Douglas, and the referee Brian Connery awarding a free out for overcarrying by the full forward.
That's great defending, Colm, from Kevin Hayes-Curtin there. Just a mention too, Luke McGrath, who's actually on the ball now, playing really, really well. Looks to be an absolutely great trim. Brendan Powter doing well. So in fairness to Douglas, they're getting good performances from defenders, good front-to-foot lively performances.
Bishopstown have had the ball in the Douglas backline now on 3 occasions since half-time. They're going to have to be a bit more productive with their attacks to get a few scores on the board. That was good defending, but I think the free was a bit harsh, Tony.
Niall Hartnett, 45 yards out, 30 yards out, playing the ball into his full forward, half blocked down, should drop into Ken O'Halloran's hands. It does. The shot from Conor Russell, but instead a Bishopstown hand slowing down the flight, and it's that young lad in front of us, Brian O'Neill. Paul O'Flynn, nice runner behind him from his corner forward Owen Deasy in that sweeping role. All going through the hands here. Odie Devlin, still Devlin. Shot from Devlin. Oh, great block there, and it's in the back of the net by Devlin out of nothing. Devlin taking the shot. Kevin Hayes-Curtin getting the first block. Spill back up to the lad from Tyrone, and well, we heard he was a classy operator, and the way he finished that into the bottom corner proved just that.
Yeah, I think you just said it there, Colm, through the hands. That's the first attack where they didn't look up and try for that early ball in, because Douglas have the extra man in there, so they're finding it hard to get the long ball in. They ran the ball through that time and they got the rewards at the end of it. Bit of luck, but they'll take that all day.
So scoreboard which we'll operate off, it has 1 goal and 4 points now to Bishopstown, so 7 points, and Douglas 11 points. We were talking about what we were expecting to see in the first 5 or 10 minutes of this, and Tony, the words of wisdom.
Again, we have no idea what's going on, Colm, in the Bishopstown camp and the reasons for it. But Brian O'Neill, Paddy, number 22, looks to me that must be a good reason why he wasn't starting, because I mean, he looks a young lad. I have to admit, I don't know what age the lad is, but he looks a young, slight lad, but he's game out. He's winning every ball, he's carrying ball, he's shipping tackles.
And as Paddy said, he's not afraid to get involved as well too.
To be fair, he looks like a guy who's a bit teed off that he wasn't starting in the first place, and maybe that's where the reaction came from.
Managerial masterstroke when it works. Liam Deneen is on the ball. Let's see now what Douglas's reaction to that goal concession is. Dara Kelly was the man wearing number 22, all the way back out as far as Niall Hartnett. As Tony said, that's just ability to make the right call. Owen Cotter, 21 yards out. Going to work it all the way back to Niall Hartnett. Hartnett in a kind of a playmaking role there now at the moment. All the way over as far as Brian. Not getting much change in his attempt to create a run. And rightly on that occasion is punished by the referee and a free awarded as he attempted to bulldoze his way through the Bishopstown defence. He's gone down holding his head, but I think he himself realised he had taken the wrong option there.
Yeah, that's excellent defending. Bishopstown had a good blanket kind of set up there, and they worked their positions very, very well and cut out all the space. But again, we'll go back to what we spoke about Douglas not being clinical enough in front of goal. That Bishopstown goal there came again from a ball dropped short into Conor Halloran's hands. He started the attack, and 15-20 seconds later the ball is in the back of the Douglas net.
And we're repeating ourselves, Colm, here when we're talking about Douglas having that inside threat. I mean, they were carrying ball there and there was no inside threat, and it's something which is a recurring theme.
Man wearing number 23, by the way, is Brian Clifford. That was a great ball out from the free from Diarmuid Lester. Again, very intelligent play by Lester. Brian, of course, picked up a bad leg injury back in March, but the COVID lockdown was probably welcome by him because it let him recover, and here he is playing championship football in July as a result. And for the third time in a row, it's a free to Douglas, and for the third time in a row, it's Diarmuid Lester who's going to stand over it. Good ball again by Lester into his centre back, Jamie O'Sullivan. Here's Diarmuid now off the right across the front of the goals, but there was defender Kevin Hayes Hurton getting down on it as 2 men around him, and you have to say tenacious play by the Bishopstown forwards, who held him up and forced him to foul the ball even, and too many steps there, and a free which Simon Collins is going to take. And
thought that was a bit harsh, Colm. I have to say that's 2 or 3 frees now that Douglas have conceded that I would have thought were in the questionable category, but certainly Bishopstown won't complain if Simon Collins pops this over the bar.
You might pick up on the background, the tricolour above the scoreboard. There's a bit of a breeze now flowing, and it's in favour of Bishopstown, who are now 1-5 on the board, and that leaves them 3 points adrift of Douglas with just on 39 minutes elapsed of this, the Bon Secours Cork Premier Senior Football Championship game, being brought to you on the Irish Examiner's website as part of our new partnership with the Cork County Board. A wonderful deal which will be extending over the next 3 seasons, and a host of championship action to look forward to in the weeks and months ahead. We'll be turning to hurling next weekend, some mouth-watering clashes to look forward to from here, and hopefully we'll have your company for those, and then it'll be back to football then the following weekend. So stay tuned on all the social media channels for the updates on those games. Back come Bishopstown, and back in with Odie Devlin trying to get on to the end of it, the man who scored the goal about 5 minutes ago, but Douglas alert to it on the bouncing ball, and here they come out on that far side, being held up by Brian Hartnett, and has the option there from Luke McGrath behind him, and they're racing down on that far side of the field with the other cornerback there, Luke McGrath again. Good, he's got a runner now inside him if he picks him up, and eventually it finds its way, but it looked to be clean off the ground there by Kevin Flahav, and we have a man laid out on the ground, and we have a free end to Douglas for another pick off the ground.
We're a distance away, so probably not best to comment on that. There are, of course, Colm, other senior championship games taking place tonight, and Noosastown are 9 points to 1-5 point ahead of Island Rovers. There were, of course, a series of games today. Skibbereen had a big win over Nix in the Senior A Championship. An interesting 2 big games in the Premier Intermediate Football Championship. Kishkane beating Mallow by a goal, and Éire Óg beating Bantry, I think, by 6 points. So all contenders, you'd be saying. So a couple of big heavyweight clashes and big wins for Éire Óg and for Kishkane.
And a big kick there by Conor Russell to restore a bit of order for Douglas. Badly wanted there, Paddy.
Yeah, Barry needed a score. I think that'll make them feel a bit more comfortable. But again, we see Bishopstown got the goal from running the ball and passing it through the hands, and they got success with the goal. And again, since then they've tried to play the kick pass, and again it's not really working out for them. I think sometimes when you play with only 3 or 2 men in there, fellas are too eager to get the ball in there early, and that option might not be on. You've got to get the balance right and run the ball when the time is right. And it just opened things up, and you've got to pull the Douglas spare man out by running the ball through a couple of times.
Tony mentioned those games today, and don't forget Monday's Irish Examiner Sport. Back to our Monday Sports tabloid, we're delighted to say. 32 pages of unrivaled comment and analysis from the Bon Secours Cork football championships across the grades. Plus we'll have insight as well too from the likes of Kerry Club Championship action down there. Dr. Crokes in good form against Timperlow last night. Plus we'll have Tipperary, Galway, Dublin, Wexford, Clare, and all of Munster covered. And don't worry if you're living abroad and can't get your hands on the actual paper. You can pick up an e-edition. Just go to the Irish Examiner website and follow the links that will get you sorted in the e-edition for this coming Monday. Ken O'Halloran waiting there as some running repairs being applied there at centre field to Paul O'Flynn, I think it was. But everyone is back on their feet, and we should be ready to go there in a few seconds. Referee Brian Connery restarting the watches. It's 12 points to Douglas, 1 goal and 5 to Bishopstown, and we're coming up on 42 minutes. But that ball all the way from Ken eludes his colleagues and finds only Brian Hartnett of Douglas, the last man he wanted to be delivering it to. It's Conor Russell who scored the free a few moments ago, getting past not one but 2 defenders, and is forced to turn around and go all the way back out as far as Daniel Hart. That's the man wearing number 21 there, just gone off your screen. Here's Brian Hartnett again, opting to go back to his centre back, Sean Wilson. And interplay again with Kevin Flahav. Breaks the first tackle, tries to find Daniel Hart with the pass, but it breaks down. But the referee has called play back that there.
Just to underline that conveyor belt column of young talent, Daniel Hart is after coming on, was part of the Cork All-Ireland winning minor group last year. Another big, tall, rangy young lad with a lot of ability. He has been introduced in recent moments, as has Andy O'Connell, has been introduced in the forward line as well for Douglas.
Anyway, the end result of all of that is another free for Douglas, and that means another chance for Conor Russell to test his range. He's about 21 yards out, but right over near the dressing rooms, and drops into the hands of Ken O'Halloran, who gets a bit of a welcome. But Douglas somehow manages to regain a possession, and in the end it's that man, Dara Kelly, wearing number 22, who pops that one over the bar. But Ken O'Halloran looked to have done all the hard work there, and he's bemoaning the lack of action by the referee there as he was trying to clear the ball, and the end result was another score for Douglas.
They're the type of scores Paddy will tell you. Of course, Paddy's coaching the Cork Senior Ladies football team. They're the kind of scores Paddy coaches love, don't they? Where work there, that the Dara Kelly, that the work that he put in there is actually recorded, is actually rewarded, I should say, turnover by him, and then he goes around and kicks the score afterwards. That's actually the kind of score that actually inspires the entire group.
And to be fair to Douglas, their 6 forwards have been very industrious since the game started, especially on the Bishopstown kickouts. With the lack of the crowd here, you can hear the pressure they're putting on Ken. They're screaming his name, they're shouting "How long, ref?" Now, for me, that was a bit of a cheap score to give away with the free dropping short. It was a chance to mount an attack again like they did for the goal, but it was kind of possession given away cheaply. But again, down to the industriousness of the Douglas forwards, they didn't give up on it.
10 ops to go long on this occasion, but Daniel Hart had read his intention and hoovered up behind the two midfielders. Kevin Flahav now on the ball, swallowing up the ground. Great ball into him, in as far as Brian Hartnett. Hartnett off his right, and that is a wonderful, wonderful score. As I said, all started there by Hart, worked it to Flahav. Great run by Flahav. Super off flow then to Brian Hartnett, and that is football at its purest, at its simplest, and I'll tell you, it looks wonderful, and they make it look so easy on this occasion. Dermot Lester has been vital since he came on there for Bishopstown. Great ball by him as far as goal scorer Odie Devlin, twisting and turning but only going backwards as far as the centre back Jamie O'Sullivan. We heard from Jamie before the game as well too, captain and centre back, and as we said, part of that 2010 All-Ireland winning Cork squad. Odie Devlin getting it there, and Odie Devlin being fouled, and it's going to be a free for Bishopstown with 46 and a half, nearly 47 minutes elapsed. We'll have our water break coming up very shortly, and it's the man wearing 22, as we said, Brian O'Neill, who's going to take this free for Bishopstown. Kind of a stop-start nature now in the last few minutes. A couple of lads going down with strains and injuries, as one would expect with this championship now at the moment, and it's a restart for so many players. Kevin Flahav and Brian Connery having a little chat there. But it's all back with O'Neill, about 35 yards out. Bit of a wind, as I said, behind him, and he's side trailing 14 points to 1-5. Is he going to make it 1-6? Yes, he is. Has been very, very accurate since his arrival midway through the first half of proceedings here.
That's a third point column for Brian O'Neill, and a few helpful social media posts inform me that he was a minor in 2015, so he's obviously about 22 at this stage. It's still all ahead of him, but he certainly has been, for me, one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive, Bishopstown player so far.
And thanks to everyone reaching out to us on our social media channels over the course of the weekend. Love to hear your viewpoints on the coverage and on the action, and I hope you're enjoying it wherever you're watching, whether it's here in Cork City, in the county of Cork, around Ireland, or indeed around the world. And delighted to be bringing you this coverage free of charge, and looking forward to doing so throughout this campaign. Back with Conor Russell, another free for Conor. Bit outside his range, so he's opted to go back as far as Daniel Hart to Hartnett. That's a great effort off his right, but just trailed wide, and just with that then we have the whistle for the water break.
One other column important and I guess Paddy poignant result from today's Premier Intermediate Football Championship was Aghada's 13 points to 7 win over Castletown Bear, and before the game Aghada retired the number 4 jersey of Paddy's former inter-county colleague Kieran O'Connor, who, as we know, sadly passed away after a lengthy illness. Paddy, you were down in Aghada for the funeral, and the club, Aghada Club, handled themselves extremely well in very difficult circumstances.
Yeah, last Friday was extremely emotional down in Aghada, but it was powerful what the club arranged for Kieran and for the family and for Kieran's memory. It's something I'll never forget personally. I'll never forget my first overnight stay with Cork in 2005, I think, was up in Donegal, and I roomed with Kieran. That was the first. I only knew him a couple of weeks really at that stage, and I remember we had an hour-long conversation about cream and cakes for some reason. So we were obviously starving going to bed that night, but I'm sure Billy didn't care how hungry we were at the time. Wonderful guy, wonderful club, wonderful family, and to be honest with you, after what I saw last week in East Cork, I think no matter who Aghada were playing today, they were never going to lose the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine that dressing room before the game, and he was actually on the team list. He was actually, when I saw the team list and the subs, they actually had Kieran O'Connor as number 4. So, I mean, it must have been a hugely emotional, actually, preparation, Paddy, and dressing room, Colm.
Yeah, and we were talking about it last night with Brian in commentary, and like, I'd like to get your insight as well too, Paddy. He was just talking about that incredible bond 10 years on. I think, was it 44 Cork players from the extended squad were at the funeral?
Easily 44 players plus backroom staff. But that's really why we won the All-Ireland that year, was because of that bond. And that bond, like Conor Coonan, really changed the culture to create that bond. And there's nothing we wouldn't have done as a group for each other. All our partners and our wives were all very, very good friends this after this day. It made a big difference to us.
Yeah.
It really pushed us over the line. We would have done anything for each other back then, playing. That's just continuing now to off the field. We're not playing with each other anymore, but that's still there.
Okay, and a credit to all involved from Cork and down in Ahead as well. And it was emotional scenes watching it on our screens last weekend.
That's Brian Collins. Cullum has been introduced. Wing forward, very good operator, has been around a long time, very, very wholehearted but very intelligent player. Will work around the middle, will forage up and down the wings, and will hopefully be looking from a Douglas point of view to bed things down.
Well, they don't need to have too much. Well, I was giving the commentator's curse there that Conor had pointed at, but that was a miss there by Conor Russell just after our restart. Interesting to see as well too last night that kind of spell now as we come down the final stretch after the water break. What team is going to manage this last 15 minutes physically better?
It's really reverted back to the first 15 minutes, and that Bishopstown are finding it very hard to get the ball down the field. Douglas have upped their energy levels and their physicality again, but again, just like the first 15 minutes, they're not taking their chances when they're presented to them.
Back out with Brian O'Neill. The man, as we learned, was a county minor 5 years ago, and definitely showed his class in the last 40 minutes or so of this clash. 52 minutes gone here, and it's David Quaid into Dermot Lester. Lester looking towards Devlin, but well taken there by the cornerback Kevin Hayes Curtin. A difficult one as he was kind of falling backwards, kept his eye on the ball though, and a safe pair of hands. Brought it back down, and yet again Douglas going through the hands and finding its way all the way to Daniel Hart. There's Hart again, great interplay with his centre back Sean Wilson. Hart all the way out there to the far side. It's Wilson evading one or two tackles. It's Mando well dispossessed and a dangerous clash there. I don't think there was anything in it as Russell was going for the ball and the Bishopstown man was trying to pick it up with a free out.
Well, in withdrawing Niall Hart and Cullum, Douglas may have felt, or some people may have felt, that they've lost that little bit of thrust, but you can see that Daniel Hart has that in spades as well, and is already making an impression. And as I said, is another lad who is probably not 19. I'm pretty sure he's not 19 at this. He's still 18, but he's another fantastic athlete, and he's actually already made an impression. And in this system, of course, games are coming on. They're going to have guaranteed 3 games. Douglas are playing Valley Rovers next, and there's guys who are coming on now are going to want to be putting their hands up.
And of course, the new look system here in Cork means that not just the result, but the scores and scoring averages could come into play as well too. So we'll keep an eye on everything beyond tonight. Great ball in as far as the man wearing 22, and that's Dara Kelly. And Kelly, oh, what a shot by him! What a shot into the bottom corner of the net. It was a super strike in the end by Kelly, and as Tony was talking about the production line from Douglas, there wasn't the big name, marquee names that we were looking forward. And Kelly taking a wonderful pass by Conor Russell and turned, and from about 13 yards a daisy cutter right under Ken O'Halloran, and that's pushed it out to 114 to 1-6 as last throw of the night from Bishopstown, with 2 subs coming on. Number 18 is Michael Noonan and number 21 is Michael Oakes. It looks to be Simon Collins here in front of us that's making way, and we'll have a track there on who else is coming off.
But that's exactly, Colin, what we spoke 2 or 3 times, and Paddy mentioned as well, that inside thrust that you're looking for. I mean, it was actually Conor Russell became the provider there, put a good ball in. Dara Kelly is really, really quick, low centre of gravity, quick, and hit the target was the main thing. Got it under Ken O'Halloran. Ken O'Halloran's a big guy, and with 5 minutes of normal time to go, you'd nearly have to be saying that's the decisive score. That should do it for Douglas.
It looks like it, and as we're looking on here, it's Douglas that are coming yet again with another number 22 this time. It's Dara Kelly, and the ball blocked, but it was a free out anyway for overcarrying. So what can Bishopstown magic in these last 5 minutes? Dara Costello is the man to Diarmuid Lester. Lester back to O'Neill, and that's a great play yet again by Kevin Flahav, and look at him, he's on his bike. The Sola lets him down, still manages to keep possession, being harried and harassed by David Quaid, and overcarries the ball. Good defensive play by the cornerback, and Diarmuid Lester taking the ball hasn't made any mistakes while he's been on the ball. Jamie O'Sullivan, good ball by O'Sullivan, nice and simple again, and a good interplay here with Owen DC out as far as Brian Clifford. Michael Oakes, and eventually harshly, I would have thought, being fouled there.
Actually good defending.
Right, that was very harsh.
That looked to be as the lads pointed out, textbook defending, but the referee decides otherwise, and it's Douglas free as we're coming down the final stretch of tonight's Premier Senior Football clash. And off the left, just inside the post, was that effort from Michael Oakes. Pushes it to 114 to 1-7. 7 points between the sides. Are you a fan, Paddy, of the new championship structure?
Yeah, I would be. I mean, from Bishopstown's point of view, as Tony said, with the games that they're going to be guaranteed, it's a big plus that they can give these young guys some time on the pitch, which they badly need. They need to gain the experience. They mightn't always enjoy it. Like tonight, I'm sure they're not really enjoying this at the moment, but it is badly needed. The more time on the pitch, the better for them. What I would say about Bishopstown is we've spoken an awful lot about their younger players, but to be fair to Douglas, their younger players have really showed up well tonight. Since Niall has gone off, Brian has taken control of the game completely. He's been awesome. I think he's got 3 or 4 points as well. He's definitely got 3 anyway. And this guy who came on, Dara Kelly, who got the goal, he looks like a very good prospect as well. And Tony's telling me that he's only 22 years of age. So we spoke a lot about the Bishopstown young guys, but Douglas's young guys are very, very good.
And speaking, Colm, of young guys, Shane Donegan has just come on. Was involved with him actually when he was under 16. Was a cracking prospect with great attitude, big rangy young fella, has had the most horrendous run of injuries over the last number of years, but it's great to see him back now in a senior championship stage. And as someone, remember Shane Donegan, as I said, good attitude. If he can stay fit, and that is the thing with all these young lads obviously, and stay fit, then he's another prospect, another one from the conveyor belt. This, you look at the age profile, and I know Brian Boyle is a contemporary of your own, Paddy, and but if you took Brian Boyle out of it, age profile wise, this is a very young Douglas team. You're talking an age range, Colm, probably from 18, 19 to maybe 22, 23, and I'd say that's probably 10 of the team you're talking about there. So anytime you're winning games in a county senior championship at that age, it's got to be good. It's got to be good in terms of building your confidence going forward.
And if you look, there's a bit of a difference between the young guys playing with Bishopstown and the young guys playing with Douglas. Physically, there's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, they're a couple of years ahead. You'd have to say that, and I think Bishopstown would acknowledge that themselves, Colm, that they, even though they're both sides are relatively young, like the Douglas young lads have a lot more mileage on the clock, and the Douglas young lads, the likes of the Brian Hartnetts, have inter-county miles on the clock. which is of extra value.
A second point there from Michael Oakes has brought it back to 114 to 1 goal and 8. We've just gone past the 60-minute mark. We'll have all those substitutions and a few little injury stoppages to take into account as we're coming down the final stretch, with Liam Dineen going back to Sean Wilson, going across the field here. And here comes Douglas yet again. Brian Hartnett wants to work it out as far as Liam Dineen. And Dineen going all the way back to Dara Kelly. This fella looks very tasty. Lovely little dink of a pass in to Mike Lynch, was it? But comes to naught, and off we go again. Oh, danger there for 1 second as the ball went across field, and Ken was sweating, and there's another goalkeeper here alongside me as well that was watching nervously. Now, what are we going to see here as David Quaid was brought to ground?
Again, it's Douglas. They're not productive enough. They're not clinical enough in front of goal. They've got the full package really. Their defence is excellent.
Andy O'Connell, by the way, just Andy O'Connell there picking up a black card, so that's going to see him heading to the bend there.
But again, when they get to that forward line, the amount of times that they haven't gotten shots off when they would have, and then when they have got it off, it's not being clinical enough really. They've got to fix that part of the game. They've got to find a marquee forward from somewhere.
David Quaid, the man who was
Blake Murphy maybe
brought to ground
from Vincent's pad, you know.
I pretend you didn't say that. He's staying north of the river, I think.
Brian O'Neill off the left, and for the first time I'd say tonight, his accuracy leaving him down. 114 to 1 goal and 8 points in this Bon Secours Cork Premier Senior Football Championship clash.
I think Colm, and I think, as I said, Paddy would have been there. I think the number one priority in the first game, Paddy, of a championship, isn't it, is to get the win. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, you like to get all the things right that you've worked on, you know, and you'd like to, obviously, there will be some work-ons, but the main priority always is to win your first, because it gives you that platform to go forward. And I think from that point of view, Douglas, I know Brian Hartnett has overplayed the ball, but I have to say, by the way, over the 60 minutes, he's been the MVP for me, Brian Hartnett has.
I'd agree with that, Joe.
His engine, like you can see, he has that inter-county engine on him now. He's not just going, he's going at pace. But as I said, the Douglas management will look at this and they'll say, yeah, we weren't great. You know, there is definitely an improvement there. But we're going to get the win. And we're going to go into round 2 with 2 points in the bag. And certainly in this league format, you're on the back foot straight away if you lose the first game.
And that's a good point, because in any year it's very, very important, especially in a group setup, that you do get the win. But this year in particular, when teams haven't been able to prepare as they would have liked, and again there's no form really coming into these games for many teams because there's been no games, it's vital that you get the first win.
Free yet again to Bishopstown, and yet again it's Brian O'Neill who's standing over it. Just seeing down below is Owen Burns on the sideline. I don't know, is he taken off and is he set to return yet again? But we're waiting for a break in play, or waiting for the linesman to get the referee's attention. Anyway, Brian Conroy advising Brian to get on with it. Just inside the 45 yard line. 64 minutes gone. And this kick looks to be dropping wide, and it's leaving it at 114 to 1-8. But there was some incursion or some word said, and the free being retaken and brought forward by about 10 yards. So a second bite of the cherry for young Brian. Off his left. And on this occasion, he finds the target, does the job, and pushes it to 114 to 1 goal and 9 points. linesman has the referee's attention, and he's bringing in or signalling Owen Burns to rejoin play. I'm not sure whether he had been sin-binned or what, but he's back in anyway. Up goes Hartnett. Niall, yeah, it looks like players are popping back in and out at the moment. So Niall Hartnett has returned to the fold as well, as has Owen Burns. And great Douglas defending down there, as David Quaid was the man who was trying to instigate some bit of an attack there.
That's something you've got to admire about Douglas, is they celebrate just as he blows it up. They celebrate their defensive triumphs, turning over balls just as they do a score on the other end. They obviously put a lot of emphasis into it. And
they're celebrating now as the final whistle has just blown. 1-14 to Douglas. Bishopstown 1 goal and 9 points. Well, as I said to Brian last night, strange times we live in, new normals and everything like that. What do we make of that?
In the end, comfortable for Douglas, which is probably a good thing, because as Bishopstown were coming back into it, I was getting less comfortable sitting next to a Douglas man. He was getting a bit cranky, I think, towards time. But again, once they kind of nullify that spark that Bishopstown showed at the start of the second half, they managed it well enough in the end. And again, only for the lack of shooting at the end, it would have been a much different scoring, I think, and it would have been much more comfortable for them.
Yeah, I think there'll be, you know, I would like to think like that there would be a certain standard there in Douglas that they would look at that and not be altogether happy. But, you know, because it is the same issues are coming up. You know, it is the same issues in terms of putting teams to the sword. And, you know, people watching might say, like, what are you talking about? They were comfortable, they were 5-6 point winners. You're not talking, unfortunately, Colin, just about this game. They're up against Valley Rovers in their next game. Valley Rovers gave Nemo plenty of it last night, and Valley Rovers basically now are in a must-win situation. That could be an altogether tighter game, where you have those chances that Douglas had today, and you need to put them away. You need to put those, you know, and so those kind of things will be a frustration, but the overriding thing from a Douglas point of view will be, as I said, the fact that they've 2 points in the bag, they've the first win. As Paddy said, like, we're in an area now where you can't rely on challenge games. We've seen the results of challenge games. They're crazy. There's no sequence or there's no kind of rationale behind some of them. So the Douglas management will not have known what they actually had really until they played Bishopstown today. I think Bishopstown, it's interesting. I'd like to actually see what the Bishopstown attitude will be to today, because it's a completely new team. Bishopstown football is a club in transition at the moment. They've gone with young fellas. They may have come today with limited expectations. They probably, as Paddy said, they got it down to a one-score game at one stage, and they might have said to themselves, you know what, we could actually do something here. But I think if you look at it realistically on the whole, I mean, Douglas were the superior side for, I would say, 60-70% of that game. You know, got a bit slack at times. Like, so it isn't all doom and gloom for Bishopstown either. Bishopstown's trouble, unfortunately, is that the way the fixtures are throwing up, their next game is against Nemo Rangers. And that really, you'd be amazed if that wasn't 0-2 for them.
Does the fact then that you've got the hurling championship then next weekend coming up as well throw another variable into
it? Does for Bishopstown, because they actually have an awful lot of dual players. I mean, Douglas this year, and Paddy and myself were just going through the team there, while there's a lot of hurlers on that Douglas team, there's an awful lot of them are actually concentrating on football this year. And similarly, when we mentioned the Shane Kingstons, the Owen Cadigans, the Alan Cadigans, they're concentrating on hurling this year. So you may not have the same dual overlap. You know, and I know it was something we did a couple of years ago, and I know that the new management, Ray Keating and his group are trying to actually develop like a football-only group, that they're not going to be affected by what's happening in the hurling. But I do know that Bishopstown team has quite, like the entire full back line, for instance, are all hurlers. So you're right, Colm, you are going to have that complication coming in over the next couple of weeks. The next time that they play a football game, there will have been 2 rounds of hurling at that stage. So you have all those variables working in. But in terms of just tonight, I think Douglas are warming down there now in front of us. They're saying to themselves, job done. We know we have issues. Like, by the way, we're not telling the Douglas management anything that they don't know already. They know where they are in terms of attack. Like, let's face it, Owen Cotter wouldn't be playing up front, you know, if there wasn't a necessity. Shawnee Powter, I know, was injured tonight. Shawnee Powter's best position is number 5. But like, Douglas have been paying him up front because they've basically had to rob Peter to pay Paul. So these are issues that Douglas know are there, but they've put up 114 tonight. They've got to win. They get out of Park Urine, they should be relatively.
I'm going to pick 3 names on the Douglas team sheet to talk through. Brian Hartnett, Niall Hartnett and Conor Russell.
Brian Hartnett for me was man of the match. Absolutely. We discussed Niall Hartnett in terms of what he can bring. I mean, potential, by the way, you laugh at this, Colin, but potential is a word that's all but banned in Douglas, because Douglas are so sick of hearing, you know, God, you've such potential, and it's almost like a slag at this stage. It's almost an insult. Douglas actually, when they hear the word potential, but I mean, you're talking about Niall Hartnett, who is someone who is already realising the talent he has at 18 years of age. He will only get better. From a Douglas 2020 point of view, even though those 2 Hartnetts are key players, Conor Russell may actually end up being the most important of those if he develops at a rate that Douglas need him to develop. He needs to be well coached, not just in terms of his shooting, Colin, but I've watched him over the last couple of years, in terms of his running lines, in terms of his ability to move laterally as well as north-south. These are all things that really good quality inside forwards, and that's what Douglas will need to be in the last 4. They're going to need inside forward. You look at the spread of Douglas scorers. Conor Russell still did well. He ended up with 6 points, and that's a healthy total, half of them from frees. But you look there, Paddy, at the rest of them, there aren't too many other forwards. Like, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 defenders and midfielders adding to the tally as well. So that's a great thing.
I was about to say there's a lot of teams that would love to have that complaint as well.
It is a great thing to spread it, but I'm more comfortable as a coach if I know that I have 2 forwards and they're going to give me 8 to 10 scores a game. They're the ones you look at. We mentioned them before.
He's a tough taskmaster.
No, because you mentioned the Luke you mentioned the Nemas, you mentioned the teams at the business end of the championship. They always, even Duhallow have been in the last 2 finals. Look at the Bars, the winners before. Look what Stephen Sherlock brought to the Bars. You are always going to require somebody who's going to be, when you're in a tight game, he's going to be the guy who's going to get you the score. I'm not certain that Conor Russell is there yet, but give the guy a chance. He's 20 years of age.
Okay, let's talk about Bishopstown there, Paddy, for a few moments. As you said, it was some of the names who didn't start that caught your eye.
Yeah, definitely. Dermot Lester, when he came on, we spoke about him before the game. Tony mentioned, I didn't know much about the guy, to be honest with you. Tony mentioned that he's a decent player, and he was surprised that he didn't start. So when he came on, I'm assuming he'll start the next day after that performance. And then you have the young guy who came on, he took the freeze for them, missed one at the end there, he was unlucky. Brian O'Neill, excellent player. He really showed a bit of bite about him. But Bishopstown have got to be they've got to be realistic about their chances and their expectations going into this game, going into the Nemo game. Like, they're not really realistically going into those games to win those games. It's all about being in transition is very, very difficult, because you can't allow yourself to get frustrated. You can't allow these young guys to come off the field frustrated. You've got to keep them grounded, and you've got to explain to them, this isn't about today, this is about next week, it's about the following week, it's about next year. It could be 2 or 3 years. But the fact that they have young fellas like this who are showing up well, potential, as Tony says, they have got potential in that squad to build. If they can keep the older guys there, which is tough as well. I mean, there's a couple of guys, Ken is pushing on, I know Jamie's pushing on a bit, Paul is pushing on a bit. If they can keep them there, and the younger guys can learn from them and watch their attitude and watch how they act, 4 or 5 years time they can be in a very strong position.
And that's why, and I think, Paddy, you mentioned it, it was a great point, I think that's why the County League this year is such a huge loss to Bishopstown. I know they had dropped to Division 4, but they had started winning games again. They had won their first couple of games. They had got back into the habit, because they've been dropping from 2 to 3, and finished bottom nearly of 3 last year. So they had actually, with these young fellas, got back into the habit of winning games. And for the league to be basically just cut and finished, and then to go straight into a senior championship, that's tough. That's tough when you're actually trying to feed some new young talent. Some of them, many of them, I'm talking about Nathan Goff, I'm talking about Simon Collins and a couple of other guys, teenagers that you're actually trying to get in. And Simon Collins here tonight was inside in the full forward line, and he was against an inter-county defender in Nathan Walsh, who is a serious man marker. I mean, Paddy, you were telling me you were in a car with a man this week who suffered at Nathan's hands.
We did. We played Douglas 3 weeks ago in a challenge game. I tried my best to forget about it because I conceded 3 goals in the first half in that game. But Blake Murphy, who's our marquee forward, which he spoke about tonight, and we gave as much ball to Blake as we could on the night. But this guy in the full back line, Nathan Walsh, I didn't know his name till after the game. Blake spoke to him. Blake knew him and said he knew he was in for a tough time because he's physical, but he can play football as well. His position is excellent. But Blake did say that, like, towards the end of that game, Douglas had the game wrapped up. They were kind of comfortable enough. But even at that stage, he didn't drop in his tenacity. And when you have a full backline player who's tenacious like that and who takes pride in his defending, just as a full forward takes pride in scores, you've really got a good player there. So, to be fair, as Tony says, that young guy Simon Collins, he was always up against it tonight. Like.
Yeah.
But it's a good learning curve for him.
It is, and the last time, Colm, we were here watching Douglas in the championship, they got
a night to forget.
It was a hammering in the semi-final, and defensively they were absolutely abysmal on the same day. I wasn't sure, and subsequently, even watching back, I wasn't sure whether they were man marking, whether they were playing a +1, whether they were playing a sweeper, but all I could see was Nemo finding holes. So I'm saying that's not necessarily the acid test to see whether they've actually righted those wrongs. Bishopstown asked some questions, but you'd expect Valley Rovers and you'd certainly expect Nemo in the third game, but I think the incentive for Douglas now is having won their first game and having Nemo having won their first game last night. If Douglas can beat Valley Rovers in 2 or 3 weeks' time, suddenly they go into the Nemo game probably with the pressure off to some degree, in the fact that the two of them will have qualified at that stage. And that might actually allow them, to actually perform in a different way and actually maybe try a different structure against Nemo, because let's face it, Nemo, not just for Douglas because they're 500 yards away, Nemo are the team to beat. I'm not even certain, to be honest with you, that you want to be beating Nemo in the group stages.
Poking the bear.
Better to actually, maybe not fully show your hand and maybe to actually be up against Nemo at the business end of the championship.
Would you go with that, Paddy, that Nemo still are the ringmasters?
They've got, most years they are, and this year that's not changed. Certainly they're going to be favourites in everybody's eyes. What I would say is, even if Douglas are qualified when that Nemo game arrives and they're not playing for much in terms of points or positioning, I still think defensively they're going to relish that challenge against top class forwards and against Luke Connolly's, Paul Kerrigan's, Barry O'Driscoll's, because watching this tonight and watching Douglas 3 weeks ago, which was only a challenge game, they're really taking pride in their defending. Like we're seeing the way that they're putting, not just in the back line, from the front all the way back, you can see they're celebrating turnovers.
At the very end of the game there, as you pointed out.
Yeah, when they have the game won, they're still celebrating the fact that we caused a turnover. The referee blew the whistle because we were that tenacious. What they're doing is they're making it very, very difficult for the opposition team to be in possession of the ball as soon as they hit the halfway line. And I think, again, the Nemo game, there might not be much to play for in terms of points, but they'll relish testing it out against them as well.
Now, in fairness, I suppose, in deference to Valley Rovers, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, because we're talking about Douglas and Nemo, but Valley Rovers, I mean, this, by the way, Cullum's home club now is Valley Rovers down in Inishannon. And they gave plenty. I mean, I was talking to a few people who were there last night. I was talking to a Nemo person this morning, and they said Valley Rovers got stuck into Nemo. They gave them plenty of it. Like they're a very durable side, and it'll be like Bishopstown. It'll be a nice step up. And actually, the way the games are working for Douglas this year is actually working very nicely. I mean, Bishopstown against a side tonight that they would have felt that they had the capacity to beat them. Certainly it goes up a notch against Valley Rovers the next day, and then obviously the last game, Nemo. It's one of those ones where the fixtures could actually fall very nicely for you, but you've still got to go out and do the business. You've still got to go out and win your games. And
the reason I'd be very much looking forward to the Valley Rovers game is they like the contact side of the game as well. We spoke about Douglas' physicality and the fact that they tried to make it uncomfortable for you. Valleys have been like that for the last 20 years. Anytime we came up against them, they really do get stuck in, and you get nothing easy physically from those guys.
Okay. Plenty of questions, plenty of answers to come over the next 2 weeks. That's where we're going to have to leave it. My thanks to Tony and to Paddy for joining us here in the commentary box in Porky this evening. That is where we're going to have to leave our live stream broadcast of this Cork Premier Senior Football Championship Clash victory for Douglas over Bishopstown in a city derby with a difference. Hard to believe. 10 minutes after the final whistle, and absolute silence here at the venue. The Bishopstown team are just still out in the field, and I think the Douglas team are already on their way back home to celebrate this win. Thanks to all our team of support here tonight. The two lads alongside me, Raf and Jack and camera, and Stephen was back in the office. And thank you again for joining our coverage. We're back here next Friday night. It's Championship Hurling to look forward to, and another epic weekend on the Irish Examiner live stream service. Hopefully we'll have your company once more for that. Thank you, good night, and enjoy what's left of this sunny July weekend.